Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Jordan Sanders. He is the Chief Commercial Officer over at Slip Robotics. And we featured Slip on the podcast before, but since then, they've evolved and they've come out with the new SlipBot Plus as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, what that means for organizations and how they're continuing to evolve their solution for trailer loading and unloading, which they say they can do in like 10 minutes, which is pretty impressive, I might say. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the feedback from ProMat, but also a little bit about how their solution can help companies who are in the process of thinking about bringing back some of their parts of their supply chain into the US amongst some of the things that are going out there out there in the world, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So, Jordan, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me again. I think, as you mentioned, I think Chris and I joined you about 2 years ago. I think
Yeah,
we were on the pod, and definitely a lot has we've grown a lot since then. And yeah, enjoyed seeing you a month ago at ProMat as well, doing the live session. So yeah, appreciate you having me back on, and looking forward to the conversation.
absolutely, definitely. So, so for maybe for people that aren't familiar with Slip, why don't you just kind of give us a brief overview to begin with here?
Yeah. So what Slip does is we have really cool technology that does something very simple. We load and unload in 5 minutes. We do
Boom.
that. It's pretty easy, man.
Yeah.
So we do that using our what we call SlipBots, basically large autonomous loading robots that are 17 feet long, 8 feet wide. Three of them fill out a 53-foot trailer. And so with three SlipBots, you're able to fully load a trailer in 5 minutes and or fully unload that trailer in 5 minutes. So really, the big value prop for Slip is speed and safety at the dock. If for all listeners who've spent some time on loading docks, it is that is everything that comes into a warehouse, right, or into a manufacturing plant comes in through a dock. Everything that goes out, goes out through a dock. Um, they're often chaotic. It's always a bit of a rush, right? You want to keep truck drivers and trucks moving. No one likes to sit and wait. And so the big value proposition of our product is that you can load and unload any truck and any type of freight, from pallets to non-stackable items to totes and really anything you can think of. We always tell folks think of it like the floor, but it moves. So if you can place it on the floor, then you can place it on a SlipBot, then it can get loaded into the truck in 5 minutes. So that's kind of what we do and who we are. We are a venture-backed startup. We've grown very quickly in the last several years. We're really proud of our customer base, a lot of American manufacturers in our customer base, including John Deere, Nissan, GE Appliances, Valio, among others. So yeah, that's kind of a bit about what we do, and happy to dig into more details.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love the solution like from the first time I saw it and you told me about it. I mean, I think that it's so simple, right? In a sense, right? You said it's like basically like, well, we just took the floor and we just move it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and I love too like that. It has that fast load and unload, and you're taking out of the equation a little bit, kind of uh, the time that it takes you put your pallets or your product, whatever it is that you're moving, on your dock. It's staged, right? So there's movement bringing it onto the dock, staging it, and then you got to move it again to get it into the trailer. Whereas like you're kind of coming in and you are like the staging platform in
that's
a
right.
sense, right? And then whenever that truck shows up, then it's ready to go, right? Or it's ready to come off, and then doesn't necessarily need to get handled right away. It comes off in 5 minutes, and then when you have time, then you can unload it when you want to unload it. It'll just sit there wherever you want it to sit until
Truck
it's ready.
is gone. You freed up that
Yeah,
dock. Truck drivers back on the road, making money, not sitting there waiting, getting angry, paying detention fees, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, less naps for truck drivers, right? So, maybe that's one downside, but, but I think that, yeah, I mean, it's such a smart approach, like, with a simple solution, right? And so now you've recently kind of taken that simple solution to the next level with SlipBot Plus, which came out just, a month or 2 ago, right? So, tell us a little bit about that and how that takes kind of this approach to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. So I love what you hit on there. It's simple. We take it as the greatest compliment when someone looks at what we do or hears about what we do, and they
Mm,
say it's simple. We think that in the robotic space, especially, the technology is really cool. The underlying technology is cutting edge, but ultimately, what people want in a product is it does something
mm,
very smoothly and very simply. I always say that the iPhone is amazing, technology, unbelievable technology, but I don't think anyone would describe an iPhone as being complex, right? They actually would describe the
right.
experience of using it as being really simple. So we take a lot of pride in folks calling our fancy robotic solution simple. Um, as you mentioned, so our SlipBot Plus kind of product line, what that is really it's born from customer feedback and really again simple thinking of saying okay we've got our SlipBot right which is just it's a mobile staging lane right so you can put really any freight on there so it's always been a core part of kind of our vision for how SlipBots would be used is that they would enable any and all types of freight
Mm,
um, what we saw from having hundreds of bots in the field and listening to customers is that adding just a little bit some very simple attachments on top of that base slip bot would make that any freight promise that much kind of impactful for folks. So one example of that is we have a customer who has non-stackable freight and
mm,
kind of difficult to handle non-stackable freight. So they started using SlipBots and getting the value from the 5 minute, load and unload, had a bunch of efficiency gains and safety gains from that. But they said, hey, could we put a rack kind of on top of the bot so that instead of just putting
mm,
one layer of products, we can fit for this particular product, they could fit 4 layers of product essentially on one bot. So essentially 4xing the cubic utilization of the trailer, right? Um, and so that's what SlipBot Plus is modular attachments that go onto the base SlipBot platform to enable even more freight to be shipped on SlipBots. So we've got a few different iterations of that. So we've got SlipBot Plus Rack. That's the one that I was just referring to, where you can have
okay.
kind of infinitely configurable racking on top of the bot to again ship more. There's also SlipBot Plus XL. That's for large, oversized freight. So we have several customers who have really big and bulky items, like think 30-foot long beams, right, that are
Mm,
not fun to manually load into a trailer or onto a flatbed. And so SlipBot Plus XL is basically a simple fixture on top of the bot and a software modification to enable that those really large, bulky items to be loaded and unloaded with SlipBots. We also have SlipBot Plus Edge. That is basically for floor loaded and fluid loaded boxes, make it friendlier, the bot a little bit easier to kind of step on and off for staff to kind of step on and off bots to do that loading and the placement process on the bot.
okay.
And then the last one is SlipBot Plus Bin. So that's, I think, just a large bin on top of the bot that, again, fluid loaded parcels can kind of be loaded into. That
Mm,
one is definitely, we had that one on display
yeah.
at ProMat. We're seeing a lot of demand there from, especially in like middle mile, packaging, processing, et cetera. And it's also just, it looks really cool. It's kind of amazing to see like holy cow you can fit a lot of boxes
Yeah.
when you see a trailer going down down the highway. I now like to imagine kind of x-ray vision and imagine the number of parcels right that are packed inside there. So the SlipBot Plus bin was fun because you're able to actually see the thousands of parcels that are can get packed really tightly into a trailer.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, I saw you guys like unveiled the SlipBot Plus. I'm like, oh yeah, like this is the next step. Definitely, like this makes
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of sense, right? Because like you said, I mean, there's a lot of different varying types of loads that are out there, right? And like you said too, I mean, we see these trucks, driving alongside of us, in front of us, behind us on the roads, and who knows what's inside, right?
right,
Could be anything, honestly.
right,
And there's so many different variations on the way that they need to be loaded or handled or protected. So allowing companies to have that flexibility with the SlipBot and adding these attachments, I think takes it so much to the next level where they're able to do that. So I'm curious though, because you mentioned in there you had one customer that said like, oh well, we can't stack our products, so can we put a rack on top of it? And that kind of
yeah.
like spurred these ideas. But I mean, can you comfortably, if you have stackable product, I mean, can you comfortably double stack pallets on a SlipBot?
Yeah, that is a great question, and the answer is yes. Right. So
Oh, okay.
many of our customers, I don't know, probably at least half of our customers are regularly double stacking product on just the base.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So, and that includes both pallets, but also, one of our customers, that case study we recently released, Four Hands. They're a furniture retailer and distributor, and they are using SlipBots to transfer everything from a 2 pound, lamp to a 400-pound table, moving that type of product between about 5 different warehouses in the Austin, Texas area. They use the base SlipBot platform with no attachments, and stack the those boxes of all different sizes kind of on top of the bot. And they're still kind of stable, on top of the bot. So the SlipBot Plus it's not a necessity, certainly for double stacking, or even for handling all fluid loaded, or floor loaded kind of boxes. But it is a great option for folks to have depending on kind of on their use case.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Because I guess it never crossed my mind. I guess originally until you said that. But yeah, I think that's really good to know because obviously that maximizes your cubic
Yeah,
utilization even more in that trailer. So really interesting and obviously I think adds a lot of different options and variability to what the customers can do. And so those attachments, I mean, if you have like one attachment, like say you have the SlipBot bin, right? I think is
yeah.
what you call the last like solution you're talking about there. Can you take that off of the platform like whenever you want, and then use it for pallets and kind of vice
Yeah.
versa?
So technically, yes. Practically, most folks are not using them, in that way. At least at this point, they're
Mm,
using for
okay.
somewhat more dedicated. It just doesn't make a lot of practical sense for them to be like removing all this stuff. But one thing that is very practical and useful for folks is with the SlipBot Plus rack. I think our design there, it's pretty cool.
Mm,
Again, for its simplicity, kind of elegant simplicity. The way that rack works is it's actually, you basically have beams that attach onto, big vertical beams that attach into the top of the bot. And then the actual racking itself, we call it infinitely configurable, because we actually use standard load bars. So the same type
mm,
of load bars I'm sure you're familiar with like E-track connectors that
yeah.
folks will use inside of trailers. That is actually what you use on the SlipBot Plus rack. So the horizontal kind of rack itself is created using load bars. And that's really cool, both for its infinite kind of configurability. You can put them at any level. You can have 2 levels, 3 levels, 4 levels, even on a single bot. Right, you can have half of the bot to be two levels, and the other half of the bots be 4 levels, for example.
Mm,
But it's also really neat that basically folks, they're able to use what they already have on hand, right? These kind of load bars and straps with the E-track connectors. So
yeah.
this thing you'd use in your trailer and you already have on hand, that same equipment can be used, with the SlipBot. So we really, for us, like we are all about, as I've hit on, we're all about kind of simplicity and really fitting in, blending into a lot of kind of brownfield existing processes, existing kind of even tools that you have on hand. So I personally am I really like I think the design
Yeah.
of the SlipBot Plus rack is really, as we like to say, elegantly simple, and we're getting a lot of good feedback from folks on it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely cool, and it's good to know because it allows that flexibility, like you said, and the ability to work with something too that's like already familiar is
Right.
very helpful as well for like the people that are working on the dock and things like
Right.
that.
Right,
So
and tracking parts, right? What's great is because we have hundreds of bots in the field and a bunch of
mm,
customers, we're able to talk to our customers of like, hey, we're thinking, even in the design phase, right? Of hey, here's
yeah,
kind of what we're thinking. And one of the big things that we heard from folks is like, I don't want even more custom hardware and custom parts that I've got to
mm,
keep track of, and so you can get really complex with how you build a racking structure, actually. But
mm,
our goal and kind of our design goal was to simplify it as much as possible and make it really easy for folks to use the product and not require one more thing to a piece of hardware to keep track of and have spare parts around, et cetera. So use what they already have
mm.
um, to work with it.
Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting. And so tell us a little bit about because I imagine too, like when people see this, whether it's they're finding you online or they're engaging with you directly or they're at ProMat, which we mentioned here. I mean, what is some of the kind of feedback from ProMat and I imagine too that people often see this and they're like, oh, I could do this with this or I could
Yeah.
do that with that. So I'm curious to hear like what were some of the thoughts? What were people's reaction as they saw this at the show?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we always get the comment of you get people, they walk by, they look at it, they
Mhm.
look again, and and then you kind of go up and you say, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" And often we get the comment of like, is nobody else doing this? Or why is it
Mm,
not always done this way?
yeah.
Again, we take as the biggest compliment. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, I think that really, especially at this ProMat, so at Modex of 20, what years? 24, we
yeah.
won the Best New Product Award, awarded by MHI. So that was really exciting for us. It was really after years of kind of building and deploying and working with customers in stealth lab, that Modex was kind of our kind of coming out party
Yeah.
in a sense. And I think we kind of burst on the scene and caught a lot of people by surprise. I think the difference this year was we had a lot of folks, we were on a lot of folks' pre show agenda. So a lot of people were coming
Mm,
by, learning about the base product. But I think honestly, even, like you, just seeing the different permutations of all the different types of freight definitely helped capture people's attention and have less imagination now of saying, okay, that looks like the type of stuff that we ship, right? That
mm,
could work really well for us. Um, so yeah, I really think in terms of the ProMat feedback, it was just, this has a lot bigger applicability in our network than what I first thought. So yeah, since the show, it's really been. I mean, I think so. At the show, we were giving live demos.
yeah.
It's handing out these
I
stickers,
loaded today.
loaded
Yes.
today stickers, because we're all about we again practicality. We want to get the product actually in people's hands, and what's really unique about our product is literally anyone can now load and unload a truck and do it in 5 minutes. So at the show, we had the bots there. We'd let anyone step right up, hand the slip controller over to them, and then they're able to just press a button, and the bot autonomously aligns with the trailer and goes inside, and then they earn themselves a "I loaded today" sticker. But really getting folks with the product, demoing it, using it, is always really impactful. And I think we had over 500 folks load and unload, handed out a lot of these stickers.
Oh wow.
So yeah, just the follow up from that, we've been flooded in the best way, because there are definitely more and more ideas and applications that are kind of coming to us now from after kind of making another big splash at ProMap.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear, and I think like that visualization. I mean, there's something to be said about seeing things online ahead of time, and you mentioned you had people kind of like on their pre-show agendas, but at the same time, like there's something to be said by just seeing it in person, right? And I think it
Totally.
it really like kind of unlocks, and like you said, it's like, oh, I see that, and now I'm like, oh, well, that looks like what's on my dock right now,
Right.
right? So
Right.
like this makes total sense, like
Yeah.
to explore this. Now with that being said, I mean, obviously since ProMat has happened, right? We're about a month out here as we're recording this. There's certainly been a lot of stuff going on in the supply chain. You could say it hasn't been quiet. A lot of stuff going on with tariffs and a push for manufacturing, the supply chain in general to come back to the US and be more domestic based. So you work with both, distribution operations, you work with manufacturing operations, to help them move a lot of things that are happening within their supply chain. So I guess tell us a little bit about what are you hearing from that perspective from maybe your existing customers or new potential customers, and how can like the SlipBot come into play when we see maybe manufacturing grow in this country?
Yeah, yeah. No, great question. Definitely, the world has shifted in the last
Yeah.
month, and no one quite knows exactly to where or how significantly. We're all waiting day by
Yeah,
day.
it's a little uncertain. Yeah.
Yeah, and what it means. So the good news, there's two sides of our business that this can impact, and I'll kind of talk about both. So one is kind of our own. We build and manufacture the bots in the U.S. in our
Mm,
headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am right now.
yeah.
That was a strategic decision we made from the earliest of days, not to outsource manufacturing, but to actually do to build the bots actually here in the U.S. What we're hearing from customers a lot right now is, as now, manufacturing and the supply chain is now coming, we have the reshoring coming back to the U.S. As has been said very publicly, right? A lot of folks are saying, well, there's already a labor shortage, right? We already are having trouble filling some of these jobs.
Yeah.
And so a lot of folks have pointed to robotics, right, as like filling the gap. What we've heard from folks, from many of our current customer base, is they actually reached out saying, hey, they're essentially concerned, is pricing going to change? Are lead times going to increase, right? How does this impact your business? Slip is, being able to manufacture and supply the bots to us. Thankfully, because the bots are built in the U.S., our own supply chain is very minimally impacted. So we're able to kind of continue to serve customers. And we're hearing from folks that that's kind of unique in this environment. There are a lot of robotics providers who the majority or all of their manufacturing is happening offshore.
Mm,
And so obviously the tariffs can have a major impact on their ability to service their customers. Now, for our customers, they are dealing with this uncertain environment, themselves, right? So
yeah.
the majority of our customer base is American manufacturers. It's folks like John Deere, GE Appliances, Nissan, folks like that who have been using SlipBots, and now with as they're going to say increase manufacturing volumes and increase operations in the U.S., they're definitely looking to us as a partner to help enable that. I think the last piece that gets talked about a lot, that when people point to robotics as kind of filling the gap,
Mm,
I think that a lot of folks think that the robots are going to take jobs away from
yeah.
from the workforce. I think what's super unique about Slip is that our bots only move with human oversight and human command. And that's a big reason why we hit on the I loaded today, right? So our
Mm,
users, and frankly, I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And for many folks, and even on the robotics provider side, the nature of their product, they are looking to kind of replace, right, or fully replace
yeah.
humans. We are definitely not looking to do that, and we have the receipts to prove that, because with our hundreds of bots in field, we have folks every day who are, one day they were a forklift operator, going in and out of trailers, getting a lot of wear and tear on their back and their bodies,
Hmm.
um, to the next day being a SlipBot operator, so still loading and unloading the truck, right? Still doing that job, but now doing it a lot faster, with more safety and a lot more ease. It is as simple as kind of pressing a button. So, our view on this is that, as you have this more reshoring and you have more manufacturing coming to the U.S., you're going to need a resilient supply chain kind of around that manufacturing base. That's really where we kind of fit in, and people are going to be at the center of that. Today, with a manual forklift, if you're loading and unloading a truck with a manual forklift, your ideal forklift operator is probably a male, age 18 to 24, and
Hmm.
you're hiring him, and you probably know that he's not going to want to stay in that job, longer than a couple months to a year, right?
Yeah,
What's
he's
really
not gonna
exciting,
be,
yeah.
50 years old driving a forklift.
Well,
That's
right,
those
but
days are
what's
over, right?
insane, what's kind of insane and a little bit scary is that we have customers who, I mean, one customer in particular, there was a woman in her 60s who
Mm,
was loading and unloading trailers. And it was a really special moment for, I happened to be on site for this along with our team. And this was a few months back, she was so excited, both that, oh my gosh, I don't have to
mm,
right, go in and out of the trailer 30 times per load. Now I can just press a button. And equally excited that now her job was she used the slip controller, which basically looks like a Nintendo Switch. And so
yeah,
she was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" She asked her coworker to get a video of her so that she could send it to her grandson and
mm,
brag that she's this is her job now. That she's a tech, as she said, a techie. So it's stories like that. Like what we're excited about as we grow is just frankly more stories like that. Our solution delivers a whole lot of value and saves folks a whole lot of money, and it has to have ROI, et cetera. But on a personal level, I mean, it's stories like that that actually motivate myself and kind of our
mm,
team. And so we really see SlipBots as being a key enabler of that resilient supply chain as American manufacturing comes back again with people kind of at the center and using robots augmenting what people are doing and kind of having a multiplier effect on what a single person can do, and again doing it faster, cheaper,
mm.
and safer than they would otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's great, and I love that story, about the techie now,
Yeah, the
the
techie. That's right.
convert it to a techie, yeah, I think that's great, but I mean, I think you had a really great point there in the beginning of your answer was that, we've been talking about a labor shortage in, both manufacturing, warehousing for how long now, right? And, to your point, we bring this over here, right, to the US and we create more jobs, but if we already have a shortage, right now, the shortage just gets
Right.
bigger almost in a
Right.
sense, right?
And I think the question is, what are
Yeah.
I hear this from so many folks. It's like, what are those jobs? And,
Yeah.
and frankly, again, I think in this industry, there's a lot of everyone has their talking points about
Mm,
not job replacement or job displacement, right? Augmentation. Um, and I do think that folks are, they're not dumb. They know, like, yeah, it sounds a little funny to me. So I do love
mm,
saying, like, look, we have receipt. Like that is how
yeah.
we work. That is what we do.
Mm,
And I do think it's a really important broader conversation of course upskilling our workforce, but who and on what timeline and for what jobs, because that labor gap doesn't get filled kind of immediately. So this is just one, we are a small piece, right? The
mm,
loading and unloading. That's something that has to happen everywhere, and it's needs to happen as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And it already is the place of some of the highest turnover, hardest to fill positions. And so that's kind of where we fit in and really help to um, enable the people to kind of do those jobs and really expand the labor pool, the accessible labor pool, because now it's
yeah.
not, you don't have to be age 18 to 24 with a certain skill set. It's if you're 18 to 70, male or female, with even limited mobility, you can now load and unload trucks, and fill these jobs.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was gonna say is that, it's, because you talked about, like, oh, well, traditionally, right, it's a forklift operator that's, loading, unloading these trailers, and they're going in and out 30 times, right, as you mentioned, and, but a forklift operator, is not typically, somebody you just pull off the street, right? I mean,
Totally.
there's training
They
that's in
shouldn't. They
there.
shouldn't be, at least. They
Yes,
shouldn't.
they shouldn't be. Please do
Yes.
not do that. Yes. There is training and, experience that goes into being a well-qualified forklift operator, which, it becomes hard to get that talent, right? And
Totally.
there's an investment in the training and things like that. If you are, taking somebody off the street that's never driven a forklift, there's time that's invested, there's
Yeah.
training that's invested in that. So, having a solution like the SlipBot certainly, like you said, expands that labor pool a little bit, right? Because
Yeah.
they don't need to be forklift certified, right? They don't
Right.
need to have necessarily that experience, from what it sounds like is much easier to do the loading and unloading with the controller.
Right.
And a lot of people are, as you mentioned, familiar with controllers that
Yeah.
are part of Nintendo Switch or PlayStation or something like that. So it makes the job like more fun, and it also makes the required experience level a little less, which then
Right.
can help to expand that labor pool. So I think that's a really interesting
Yeah, and
interesting
Kevin,
point there.
one more
Yeah.
thing I want to
Right.
add, so that people really know I'm not BSing them. Um, we are forklifts going away? No. Forklifts at
Yeah.
all of our customers. How does stuff get on the SlipBot? It gets on with a forklift, right?
Yeah.
So that's another way. Again, when we go on site with customers, one of the things that is so fun is we'll go on site to do a free on-site demo, show a SlipBot in action, and you always have the staff there will be kind of, they've seen this before. They've seen some robot stuff before. They're
Mhm.
skeptical. They're kind of sitting back. I mean, you can
Mhm.
feel the eyeballs kind of on you, right? And so one thing we love to do is like bring those folks over, show them the bot, put their controller in their hands. And I think when they see that this makes their job, the loading, unloading part, I've yet to find anyone who is just like, oh, I love doing that. I want to keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
But then they also understand that, oh, the way the stuff gets on and off of the bot is still with a forklift, right? It's still kind of the way that we're working today. And so I think what is really awesome is when we go and deploy, we have a lot of trust with the folks on the ground. They're like, I saw this a few months ago. Now we've got it in, and they will see that there's not a bunch of head. There's not heads rolling, right? They're not cutting
Mm.
staff, right? Folks can be reallocated to. They already often the loading unloading part of their job was just a part, and it was a really high stress part of it, so they're actually really thrilled to say, "Oh, cool, those bots got it." But once I've put it on the bot, it's as good as out of the door. Because someone else is going to come along and use that controller to load it. So again, I like to, because I do think that there's a lot of talking points and even smoke and
Mm.
mirrors sometimes in this industry. I like to really make it highly practical of like, this is what it looks like for our bots to actually get out in the field and work with folks. And it really is a job augmentation. It makes jobs better, not a job, kind of replacement. And we've got the receipts from hundreds of bots in the field with our customers, kind of proving that in their operation.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's great, and it allows so much more flexibility. I think in that area, like on the dock, like we talked about early in the conversation, like around the drivers to like benefit, right? They're not sitting around and waiting. You're not running into like any kind of tension charges or things like
Yeah,
that. I mean, it's quick in and out, and anybody could essentially kind of jump on and unload or load that trailer if you need to. You don't have to like,
right,
well, my forklift operator, he's loading door 13, so when he's done, he'll be over and he'll take care of you, right? I mean,
right.
that kind of takes away that
And
part,
as
which
you
is
know, that
fantastic.
happens all day, every day, at
Yeah.
every facility. Is those kind of strains and bottlenecks. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So really great to catch up with you here, Jordan, and hear some of the latest with Slip Robotics. So if people are interested in learning more, getting in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, sliprobotics.com or follow us on LinkedIn at Slip Robotics. Um, I'll plug the thing that my team love to do the most is on free on-site demos. So literally, you can have one call with us, and assuming we identify a use case, pick a date, place, and time. We'll bring a bot to you, and in a 2-hour period, you can see the bot working on your dock with your freight. If you want to run it over to another facility, we can do that. So really, if you're interested, the best way to get in touch is, again, our website, sliprobotics.com, or follow us on LinkedIn. And we'd love to do those on-site demos. Our agenda is pretty full coming out of ProMat, so please reach out now to get on the schedule. But yeah, we love to do that for folks.
All right, fantastic. So call them up and get that SlipBot delivered onto your dock right
It's a fun
there. So
show. At least take the free show.
yeah.
It's fun.
All right, great. So we'll definitely put all that information at thenewhouse.com and in the show notes as well. So Jordan, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesaresexy.com and get your own.